William, we're here on the first day of the regular signing period, and there's not going to be a ton of additions today, but let's start today off by talking about a couple guys that have joined the herd since that early signing period, and there are a couple transfers on the edge, which was a real position of need for the Buffaloes. And they went out and got two graduate transfers, Michigan transfer Taylor Upshaw and Jordan Domineck, who was a standout at both Georgia Tech and Arkansas. Between those two guys, William, Domineck had a little bit more of an impact so far here in the college level. 14 tackles for a loss, 7.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles in 2 full seasons at Georgia Tech, then ranked tied for third in the SEC with 7.5 sacks for the Razorbacks this past season. And then with Upshaw playing in a front seven littered with NFL talent, he still found a way to get on the field a little bit, credited with 6.5 sacks and a game-sealing interception against Ohio State during his time with the Wolverines. What stands out about both these guys for you?
Well, I think the most obvious thing is that they have a significant amount of experience at the Power 5 level. So everything they've done is against guys that are as good. Well, frankly, when you play at Michigan, you're going to play against a lot of guys at Ohio State, places like that are as good as anything we'll see in the Pac-12. And, similar, I guess the same thing for Domineck, both from Georgia Tech and the ACC and at the SEC. Both of these guys have gone up against the best offensive line that are out there in college football and have done relatively well. I think it's always kind of hard to tell with a guy like Upshaw. Did he not play as much because of the talent ahead of him, which I think may well be the case. You look at Michigan's classes every year, they're top 10, top 15, and every guy they got there is a blue chip guy. So, just because you're not a starter at Michigan doesn't necessarily mean you're not a good player. But, when he gets in there, he seems to make things happen and has had some success rushing the passer. Domineck, on the other hand, watching the video that's available of him out there at both schools, he is a pure, real first-rate pass rusher. You don't finish third in the SEC for sacks when you're a bum. So they're similar guys in terms of their size. It's interesting to me watching Domineck that he played almost entirely with his hand on the ground. And then Upshaw, they did a little bit. They ran him from a 2-point stance a lot of times, and he dropped back into coverage and actually had that game-sealing interception against Ohio State in one of those games. So two very versatile guys. I think Domineck is a guy that you're very clearly going to put him on the edge and let him go one-on-one with offensive tackles and try to give you that pass rush. And I think Upshaw is a little more versatile. I think you can use him in a variety of different ways, either in a 2-point or with a hand on the ground, and probably even a little bit inside too in different packages.
Colorado only had 9 sacks last season. That was the worst of all 131 FBS programs. I think 5 years from now, when I think back to the 2022 season, the poor quarterback play is probably the first thing I'm going to remember, but probably number 2 will be the lack of a pass rush that they had on defense. And obviously bringing in Shedeur Sanders helps fix that issue that I talked about there from the 2022 season at the quarterback position.
Right.
Do you think with the additions of Domineck, Upshaw, bringing in Shane Cokes and Taj Alston, does that fix the issue, or is that still kind of a question mark, something that's yet to be determined?
Well, I think it obviously is yet to be determined. I think we're a little shell shocked to see you and not, we haven't had a legit pass rush for the last 15 years, except for one time in 2016. So, it's just not something we're used to seeing out there. I think those 4 names are the first 4 that would come to my mind. I think there are a couple of others. I think Jeremiah Brown is a guy who could help with the pass rush. But I think also schematically it's going to make a big difference, because a lot of what we did defensively last year didn't make a lot of sense to me, where we were lining up and what we were asking people to do. And we didn't bring a lot of support from the secondary and things like that. If you think back to 2016, when Jimmy Gilbert got 10 sacks that season, there was a lot of different blitzing from all over the field, from safeties and cornerbacks and things like that, that big play against Michigan, where we blitzed Cheeto and got the strip and then a touchdown from McCartney. But schematically and in terms of talent, I think we're going to see something entirely different. I think it's going to make a big difference.
All right, between them, Domineck and Upshaw have seen action in a total of 82 college football games, so they bring a lot of experience with them to Boulder and in Nick Williams' group.
Yeah, and I think that they're both, particularly Upshaw. I know what kind of coaching he's received for 4 years, however many it is, and then same for Domineck. They're both well coached. They're both well developed. They're grown. Like to say, grown ass men. 22, 23 years old, and it's going to make a big difference as opposed to putting a freshman in there or what have you.